Hello everyone, welcome back to the second part of our Titanic story. If you missed the first part, make sure to check it out. It covers the incredible journey of the Titanic from its construction to its ill-fated maiden voyage. In this part, we'll dive deeper into the tragic night of April 14th, 1912, when the Titanic met its fate. We'll explore the harrowing moments leading up to the sinking, the heroic acts of the crew and passengers, and the aftermath of this historic disaster. Along the way, we'll uncover the controversial role of the SS Californian and the lessons learned from this tragedy that continue to resonate today. By April 14, 1912, the Titanic had been sailing for 4 days. Everything seemed perfect. Passengers were enjoying their luxurious surroundings, the sea was calm, and the weather was clear. But beneath this serene surface lay a growing sense of unease. The Titanic's journey through the North Atlantic was anything but ordinary, as the ship encountered numerous iceberg warnings from nearby vessels. These messages, sent via Morse code, told of large icebergs drifting dangerously close to the Titanic's route. Yet, despite these warnings, the ship continued at full speed, setting the stage for one of the most devastating maritime disasters in history. Throughout the day, the Titanic received 7 iceberg warnings from other ships in the area. Each warning informed the crew about the presence of massive icebergs ahead. However, not all of these warnings reached Captain Edward John Smith. Some were intercepted by the Marconi wireless operators, who were busy sending passenger messages and didn't prioritize them. Others simply weren't marked urgent, so they were overlooked. Even the warnings that did reach Captain Smith were dismissed. He believed the Titanic was safe, a belief reinforced by the widespread myth that the ship was unsinkable. This overconfidence proved fatal. The captain made no effort to slow the ship down. The Titanic continued at its maximum speed of 21.5 knots, about 40 kilometers per hour. That night, the sea was unusually calm, with no moonlight or waves. This eerie stillness made it nearly impossible to spot icebergs in time. The lack of waves meant there was no telltale white spray against the dark horizon, leaving the Titanic vulnerable to collision. On the ship's deck, 2 lookouts, Frederick Fleet and Reginald Lee, were stationed in the crow's nest, tasked with watching for dangers like icebergs. They didn't have binoculars because the officer who had them left the ship before the journey and forgot to hand them over. At 11:39 p.m., everything changed. Frederick Fleet spotted something dark and massive ahead. As the Titanic approached, he realized it was an iceberg, a colossal one. Fleet immediately rang the warning bell 3 times and shouted into the phone, "Iceberg, right ahead." The officers on the bridge reacted quickly. First Officer William Murdoch ordered the crew to turn the ship to the left and reverse the engines to slow it down. But it was too late. Just 37 seconds after spotting the iceberg, at 11:40 p.m., the Titanic collided with it. The iceberg was enormous, 2,200 feet high and 400 feet long. It weighed around 1.5 million tons and was about 100,000 years old. While the collision caused chunks of ice to fall onto the deck, the real damage occurred below the waterline. To understand how a piece of ice could damage a steel ship, consider these factors. 1. The iceberg's strength. Icebergs are solid with sharp edges that can act like knives. Most of the iceberg was underwater, making it extremely heavy and powerful. 2. The Titanic's steel. The steel used in 1912 became brittle in freezing temperatures. When the iceberg hit, the steel plates cracked instead of bending. 3. The rivets. The metal rivets holding the steel plates together were weak. When struck, these rivets popped out, creating gaps in the hull. The iceberg opened 6 narrow holes below the waterline, allowing water to pour in rapidly. When the collision happened, most passengers didn't realize anything was wrong. Some felt a slight jolt, while others heard a grinding noise. In the first-class dining room, people joked, "What was that? Did we hit something?" In the engine room, however, the crew knew the situation was dire. Water was rushing into the lower decks. The Titanic's watertight compartments were designed to keep the ship safe, but the iceberg damaged more compartments than the ship could handle. By midnight, water had flooded the first 5 compartments. This was critical. The ship's design could manage flooding in 4 compartments, but not 5. Captain Smith realized the Titanic was sinking. Yet, most passengers remained unaware. Music played in the lounges, and people laughed and talked. At midnight, Captain Smith called an emergency meeting with his senior officers. He gave clear orders: start lowering the lifeboats, send distress signals to nearby ships, calm the passengers, and avoid panic. The Titanic had 20 lifeboats, but they weren't enough for the 2,224 people on board. The lifeboats could hold only 1,178 people, leaving over 1,000 without a chance of survival. This was a design flaw. The company had chosen aesthetics over safety. As the crew began lowering the lifeboats, wireless operators Jack Phillips and Harold Bride started sending distress signals using Morse code. They used the call sign CQD, Come Quick Distress, and later SOS, the new international distress signal. One of these signals was picked up by the RMS Carpathia, a passenger ship 58 miles away. Its captain, Arthur Rostron, immediately set course for the Titanic, traveling at full speed. However, even at 17 knots, it would take 4 hours to reach the scene. Meanwhile, the SS Californian, just 20 miles away, failed to respond in time. Its wireless operator had gone to bed and missed the distress calls. Confusion spread among passengers as the lifeboats were lowered. Many hesitated to leave the brightly lit Titanic, thinking the lifeboats were merely a precaution. Third-class passengers faced additional challenges, struggling to navigate the maze-like lower decks. Language barriers further complicated their escape. By 12:30 a.m., the first lifeboat was lowered into the freezing Atlantic Ocean. It had space for 65 people but carried only 28. This pattern repeated throughout the night. Many lifeboats left half-empty because passengers didn't believe the ship was sinking or thought they'd be safer staying aboard. By 1:30 a.m., the bow front of the Titanic was fully underwater, causing the ship to tilt forward. Panic spread as the reality of the situation became undeniable. By 2:15 a.m., the Titanic's fate was sealed. The weight of the water caused immense pressure, and the ship began to break apart. The bow plunged downward, lifting the stern high into the air. The stress on the middle section was too much, and the Titanic split into two pieces. Both halves sank separately, disappearing into the icy depths. At 4 a.m., 2 hours after the Titanic sank, the RMS Carpathia arrived. Its crew worked tirelessly to rescue survivors from the lifeboats in freezing water. Only 705 people survived, most of them women and children. Over 1,500 perished, leaving behind a haunting legacy. The aftermath of the Titanic tragedy sparked outrage and questions. How could such a grand ship sink? Why were there so few lifeboats? Investigations revealed shocking details, including the controversial role of the SS Californian. The Californian was just 20 miles away when the Titanic sank, yet its crew failed to respond. The ship's wireless operator had turned off the radio for the night, missing the distress signals. Even worse, the Californian's crew saw the Titanic's distress flares but assumed they were fireworks or part of a celebration. This failure to act remains one of the most debated aspects of the disaster. The Titanic's sinking led to significant changes in maritime practices. Ships were required to carry enough lifeboats for everyone on board, wireless radios had to be manned 24/7, and safety drills became mandatory. These measures have saved countless lives since. The Titanic disappeared into the Atlantic for decades, resting at a depth of 12,500 feet. In 1985, Dr. Robert Ballard and his team discovered the wreck using advanced technology. The bow was relatively intact, while the stern was twisted and broken, evidence of the ship splitting in two. Around the wreck, personal belongings like shoes, dishes, and luggage served as haunting reminders of the lives lost. Today, scientists warn that the Titanic is slowly disintegrating due to bacteria and saltwater corrosion. By 2030, it may vanish entirely. Despite this, the fascination with the Titanic endures. It represents human ambition, tragedy, and resilience. The stories of bravery, sacrifice, and loss continue to captivate us. In 2012, Australian billionaire Clive Palmer announced plans to build Titanic II, a modern replica of the original ship. While the project has faced delays, it highlights the lasting impact of the Titanic's legacy. The ship symbolizes both the heights of human achievement and the dangers of overconfidence. The Titanic taught us invaluable lessons. 1. Overconfidence can be dangerous. Believing the Titanic was unsinkable led to fatal mistakes. 2. Respect nature. The iceberg reminded us of nature's power and unpredictability. 3. Plan for the worst. Safety regulations improved significantly after the disaster. The Titanic story is a mix of glamour, tragedy, and mystery. It's a cautionary tale about ambition and arrogance, preserved in the wreckage at the bottom of the ocean. But above all, it's the stories of the people aboard, their courage, sacrifices, and humanity that keep the Titanic alive in our hearts. Thank you for joining me on this journey through history. Let's remember the lessons of the Titanic and strive to learn and grow together. Hello, everyone.